Joining us here in the studio in our panel are Shane Byrne, and in our Cork studio, Donald Lennon, who will also be joined on the phone by a number of special guests as we proceed with this conversation. But Shane Byrne, first of all, why do Ireland find it really hard to get wins in this championship?
Start with a nice easy question. Yeah, thanks. I suppose in recent years it's been all about consistency. But one thing that has to be said that people have to realise is that the Six Nations is, there's a reason why it's one of the premier competitions in the world rugby. It's because it's bloody hard to win. Trends are booked every single time. Old foes can always raise a game. Teams who are playing terrible all the way up until the Six Nations but managed to pull out an incredible performance. It's hard to get a run right through. But definitely with an Irish point of view, like if you think Wales, I think, are going, now Don might be able to make sure that this is right, but I think Wales are going for the first ever 3 in a row. And that's, that just says in the long history of the competition how hard it is. But look, Ireland, it's all about consistency. Over the last 10, 15 years, we've had, particularly the last 10 years, we've had good sides. We've had good teams that can compete the whole time. But yet we have this terrible ability to play fantastic 1 week, and then the next week the same bunch of players, whatever it is mentally, can just come out and play terribly.
Donald, what's your thoughts on all this?
Yeah, I think it's the nature of the chili, Darren. You're asked to play 5 big test matches in 7 weeks. Traditionally, Ireland probably wouldn't have as much strength and depth as the likes of England and France in particular. Therefore, injuries play a massive role. And as we know with the modern game, all squads now have practically 20% of their frontline players injured at any one point in time. So I think that adds to the difficulties Ireland have, none more so than last year. I mean, the injuries last year were just unbelievable. By the time we got to Rome, the last game, Peter O'Mahony was ending up on the wing for 50 minutes of that match. So I think, that certainly has been a problem. But the other one being, as Shane has put his finger on it, really, this complete roller coaster of performances. Brilliant 1 week, not so good the next week. Go back to last year, the opening 43 minutes against Wales, Ireland were 27 points up and barely hanging on to win the game in the end, and that's only in the one match. So that's an issue that has to be addressed, and I think Shane is closer to the scene in Leinster, but certainly the advent of Joe Schmidt, I have to say, gives me huge confidence and huge hope for the Six Nations, even if it does take a coach who has no international experience a period of time to find his feet at that level.
Isn't that the key to it, though? Is that he's almost coming in without any of the luggage, without any of the previous thinking about the coaches or anything like that. He's just almost coming in with a clean slate, and we expect him to, his attention to detail, we know he can motivate sides with everything he's achieved with Leinster, is that we're hoping that it converts into that, because one thing we haven't had for a while is that despite the provincial successes we've had over the last few years, it hasn't gone onto the Irish side, like as opposed to the opposite to Wales, where their provinces aren't doing wonderful, but by God, when they put on that, they play as a club side that have been playing together for ages, and that's what we're hoping Joe Schmidt is, as long with putting all the game plans and everything else together, that's the key to it, that he brings the best out of these guys.
Donald, what's the remit for this championship coming off a roller coaster ride that was the November Internationals? Is it building for the future? Is it to go on and win this?
It's a difficult one Six Nations are viewed slightly differently now by a lot of the countries. The rugby world now is dictated by 4-year cycles building up to a World Cup. Some of the countries have tended to experiment a little bit more than we had. I think the RFU have been very clear in their expectations with any national coach in that there's a lot of money pertaining to the Six Nations. The higher up you finish in the table, the more money accrues to that particular country. So I know going back over the last 7 or 8 years, certainly the RFU wanted the strongest team picked at all times in order to maximise the return. But it's difficult then, because when you do get injuries like Declan Kidney had last year, they're having to throw in a lot of inexperienced players in at the deep end, and we've tended to blood our younger players by giving them 10 or 12 minutes at the tail end of an international game, when the intensity, certainly from a scrummaging point of view, may not have been as big as it would have been in the opening 20 other countries tend to make changes, start their younger players from the start. So Joe Schmidt is on record already in terms of he's targeting a top 2 finish, and he's also looking to build the strength and depth. So I'm intrigued to see how he's going to approach it. Is he going to stick to his strongest team? Is he going to rotate in certain positions where I think the biggest plus since last year, because of all the injuries that Declan Kidney had, a number of players were thrown in at the deep get experience. That has widened the net in terms of selection. But also we've had, even in the last 6 months, a whole crop of young forwards sort of putting their hands up. Mike Ross was our sort of one and only tight head option for a long time since John Hayes went. Now you have Stephen Archer has been there before, Declan Fitzpatrick, and most impressively I think Martin Moore and Leinster in the past couple of weeks. So I'm just very interested to see how Schmidt approaches the selection process over the 7 weeks.
Well, let's talk about Joe Schmidt's best 15. Shane, get the ball rolling here for us. Does the pack pick itself, or what's your starting age?
I think it does. I think maybe the 7 is the only really debate left, but I think Henry...
Is it a debate?
I think Henry will start, but I think O'Donnell was absolutely fantastic. And just go back to one of the points that Donald made there with the lack of experience for these guys at that step-up level. Really would bemoan the fact that we have just played the only A game in the year. And like, whereas, as Donald remembers all the way going through late 90s, early 2000s, before it started to be disbanded, all your squad were playing representative games during this period, and you could pick and choose and get the guys up. But yeah, I think it's Healy, Best, Ross, O'Connell,
Toner?
Yeah, Toner, sorry, Leinster, O'Mahony, Heason, Henry.
Donald, would you go along with that?
Yeah, I would. I think Joe Schmidt is that 8 penciled in already. I mean, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to see, the A side that went out for the game yesterday. I think all those guys were playing for positions on the bench, certainly with the opening 2 games in mind.
Tommy O'Donnell done enough to warrant more serious consideration?
Well, he certainly put himself up there. I mean, the problem was he was out injured for 3 or 4 months, so he's a bit behind where Chris Henry was. I was in Welford Road covering the game with RTE last weekend. I thought Henry was superb against Leicester. So I think he's just slightly ahead of O'Donnell at the moment. But I mean, the beauty is, and let's be honest, I mean, the one forward you didn't want to lose, well, probably 2, Paul O'Connell and Sean O'Brien. O'Brien is going to be a massive loss. So therefore, don't expect the players who come in and wear the number 7 jersey to replicate what he does. But what they do, both Henry and Tommy O'Donnell, is they're very strong over the ball. They're excellent at the breakdown. So in the event of injuries, back rows are the area on the field where you have the biggest percentage of attrition, if you like. So you need that strength and depth. So I think he'll need both Tommy O'Donnell and Chris Henry.
There's no doubt both will feature.
Yeah.
At one stage or another, there's no doubt about that.
Okay. He's kept us guessing on the scrum half issue. I think the general consensus would be that it would be Conor Murray. Shane, have you any reason to think it won't be Conor Murray at 9?
No. I think it will be. Genuinely, I think Isaac Boss is in superb form at the moment.
Would you put him in?
Personally, I would, but it's not going to happen. It's between Edmund Murray and Murray to start. No doubt about that.
Yeah, I think it will be Murray, and I think on merit. I mean, I've watched this guy come through the system down here. It's only 2 years since he got a start for Munster. That was in the Amlin. I think at Munster they didn't qualify in 2011 for the Heineken Cup for the first time for the quarterfinals, and Tony McGahan decided to use the Amlin to give some of the younger fellas an opportunity. That was April 2011. By September, Conor Murray was in the Irish World Cup squad and came home as the number 1. Likewise, he went on the Lions tour as the number 3 behind Ben Youngs and Mike. But ended up he was on the bench for the 2nd and 3rd test, and I think if there was a 4th test, he could well have been the starter. So he is one of these guys. Once he gets his sniff, once he gets his foot in the door, he's very commanding. And I think you only had to look at his influence when he was injured recently for Munster, the influence that was lacking when he wasn't there, and then came back after injury, and I thought he was outstanding, even though he is still a bit ring rusty. But no, I think he's a certain starter. He's also, I think, crucially building up now a good rapport with Johnny Sexton. So I think you'd have to say again, looking towards the World Cup in 2015, they look like you're nailed on a half-back partnership, and you would hope, you know, all the best partnerships at half-back in rugby have been sort of playing together for 4, 5, 6 years, and I think those two have the capacity to do that.
Just to get your thoughts on Johnny Sexton, obviously had a great performance yesterday for Racing Metro last night, and the player obviously bang in form, but really good interview with him with Peter O'Reilly in the Sunday Times today. But just one thing really caught my eye. He was talking about, you know, the agony of missing that kick against New Zealand, and you know, it's been a real torment for him. But he's also been talking about how the team doctor suggested that he come off 10 minutes before that kick was taken with his hamstring problem, and he basically refused. Are you surprised that, you know, he would have done that?
No. No player when they're on the pitch was to come off.
But was he putting himself ahead of the team in that situation, knowing a medical personnel thought he shouldn't continue?
But look, how many times have we seen Brian O'Driscoll pull himself together within, you know, taking a couple of minutes to get himself back on and to get himself going again on the park? It's very hard to put in words like what it is feels like when the adrenaline's flowing inside you. You know there's something up, but you genuinely do feel that you can keep going. You genuinely do feel that, you know, it'll be okay. I can run this one off. I can keep going. I still have something to contribute. Look, hindsight is a wonderful thing, and it will haunt him, and please God he'll get a chance to redeem it at some stage. Not for a while yet, but you know, it is just one of those things that he wasn't right, and everybody could see it when he took that kick.
Sorry, Shane, I think that's the nature of a competitive rugby player. I mean, he was out there. He could smell. This would have been one of probably the most famous Irish victory of all time.
Absolutely.
And you know that. You don't feel the pain in that scenario. There's no question for me. I remember at the time even referring to it on commentary, I thought he was cramping up in the 2 or 3 minutes before the kick. And if you look at the kick again, he didn't quite follow through the way he normally does. So there was no question that he wasn't 100% right. But he, not coming off, he did the exact same thing as any other player in the same situation would have done.
Let's go back to the team selection. Let's talk about the backs, and look at these injuries to Tommy Bowe, who hopefully we will see back at some stage in this competition. Keith Earls really has opened up two positions on the wing, and who are the two likely candidates to fill those? Shane, firstly, your thoughts?
Yeah, thanks. Should have gone down for this one first.
Sounding board.
Well, look, you have Zebo, Fitzgerald, Carney, and McFadden. And
Andrew Trimble?
Andrew Trimble as well, absolutely. And, you know, all of them have a right to claim on the jersey. I think McFadden was a timely re-entry last night. I think he played very well. He didn't put a foot wrong, as he normally doesn't. But then again, you have Carney, who was the man in situ, had the jersey on his back last, and played very well. And Fitzgerald, I think, is a starter. I think he's a little bit of that X factor back. He looks like he's back on the form that saw him rocket up the ranks a few years back all the way to the Lions.
Fitzgerald, and who else?
Yeah,
off the fence, Shane.
You know, I think Zebo's probably just a little late. I think his form, he looks like he's back electric again. I'll go McFadden.
Okay.
Yeah.
Donald?
Well, Rob Carney is a certainty at full-back and on merit. Luke Fitzgerald has been outstanding, and personally thrilled to see him. Look, all the anguish, all the hassle and all the injuries he's had over the past number of years. You know, at the start of the autumn series, I think Joe Schmidt wanted him to come in and be part of the wider training panel, and he said, no, I need game time, I need matches. And he stuck by his convictions, and he ended up on the field of play in the last 15 minutes against New Zealand. His form then has been spectacular, so he's a certainty for me. And I'd pick Zebo on the other wing. I think back three of Carney, Fitzgerald, Zebo. I accept that he's short on match practice, but I've seen enough he's come off the bench for Munster in 2 Heineken Cup games. He got another cameo appearance yesterday. I thought against Edinburgh, maybe Joe Schmidt is playing a little bit of silly buggers here. He left him out of the international squad, which I thought was strange at the time, because he said it was because he hadn't played in a couple of months, but Fergus McFadden hadn't played in the same time frame, and he was in the squad. So I just wonder, was he putting a little bit of a rocket under Zebo? I thought when he came on against Edinburgh last week, his work rate off the ball, he was tracking all the ball carriers, looking to get on the ball. I thought he was excellent. So I just think he has the X factor. I mean, I've watched this guy since he was a young fella, and again, I think the higher up the levels he he plays, the better he looks. I mean, on the Lions tour, I saw his first game against the Waratahs in Sydney. He almost scored with his first touch of the ball, and that's what he offers. I don't need to remind people of that unbelievable touch he had against Wales last week, last year, the try he scored in the corner from that brilliant pass from Brian O'Driscoll. But he has a try scorer's instinct. He put himself into position where O'Driscoll knew that if he could thread that ball through the 3 Welsh defenders, that Zebo was going to be there. And I think that is the type of attacking prowess we need. And let's be honest, our opening game is against Scotland at home. It's a huge risk to play him on the way to that game.
Shane, is there just 2 other positions on the field worth talking about and debating about? Is there any chance he's going to break up the Triad and trust it at centre?
I don't think so. I think Marshall is very close. He's thereabouts. But I think Darcy's form will keep the steadiness between O'Driscoll and himself. There's no doubt O'Driscoll's going to get picked, particularly as Smith is part of the reason that he's playing another year. But
he's under the spotlight.
No doubt. Look, he has pressure on him. But I think they'll go with the partnership that is, I think it's the world record holder now at this stage. And Darcy hasn't been playing bad for Leicester at all, and Marshall is there waiting in the wings.
Okay, look, we're going to talk about our opponents now. We're going to move on, and let's look at our first opposition next Sunday. It's Scotland, a team that finished 3rd last season after wins against Ireland and Italy. Their coach, Scott Johnson, believes that this year's competition is very unpredictable. He feels there'll be upsets galore. We'll have to see about that. I'm sure he's hoping that his side can take advantage and get themselves in the mix. But let's get the view of the Scottish captain, Kelly Brown.
It's one of the biggest challenges that we could have been thrown in the first week, but as a squad it's one we're really looking forward to.
Well, you'll take great heart from the performance and the results and inflicting some pain on Ireland last year.
I think it showed that we can win these games. In saying that, the Irish, I would imagine, will be slightly angry after that game as well. So it's going to be tough, but we just got to focus on ourselves and just make sure that all of the squad are at or very, very near their absolute peak. And if we can do that, then we can put the Irish under pressure.
How different do you expect, or how different a force would you envisage Ireland being under Joe Schmidt?
I think the Irish are always a major force. I think anyone that watched the game against the All Blacks in the autumn, the All Blacks managed to sneak it right to the end, but the Irish side played some incredible rugby, and so there's no doubt that they will be very, very tough.
The atmosphere and the mood and the passion around the national team in Scotland seems to be on an upward curve again, and that's something that you'll be looking to harness and drive on even more than the situation is at the moment.
Yeah, well, we managed to finish 3rd in the Six Nations last year, which was our highest finish for quite a number of years. But we're as a side that we're nowhere near finished article, so we need to keep on working hard, keep on improving, and also making sure that week in, week out we are consistent. Because Scottish sides in the past were able to maybe raise their game every now and again, but it's about just doing that week in, week out.
That's Kelly Brown, the Scottish captain, speaking to Damien O'Mara. We're joined on the line from Scotland by the broadcaster and journalist Graham McGregor. Graham, great to have you along. What are your expectations for the Scottish team in 2014?
Great to be along. Expectations, well, at that point in the season, just a few days